We all know how much Hollywood loves sequels, prequels, and spin-offs. They're not necessarily easier to produce, but they do help reduce the risk that come with original projects. However, it's often impossible to crank out a sequel quickly. The reasons vary. Filming might take longer than expected. Actors could be tied up with other projects, or post-production might end up dragging on. Of course, filmmakers have plenty of options. They can outsource visual effects to India or buy costumes from a bargain shop, but none of that really speeds up production. Still, there are exceptions. Usually low-budget horror films shot on sound stages or in small locations. Some of these were made for next to nothing and ended up raking in impressive profits. That's why franchises like Friday the 13th managed to release a new movie every year. In 1984, another project joined the ranks of those fast turnaround films, and it had nothing to do with horror. The massive box office success of the first Police Academy, which cost just $4 million and was shot in just over a month, showed Warner Brothers that the movie was perfect for conveyor-belt production. That's exactly what the studio went for, pushing the creators to deliver a film every year. This pressure inevitably affected the franchise, and with each new movie, the box office numbers kept falling until they eventually dipped below the break-even point. Anyway, today we're talking about Police Academy, a franchise that went from producing one of the highest-grossing films of the year to releasing direct-to-video titles. Police Academy producer Paul Maslansky got the idea while working on The Right Stuff. According to him, police cadets were helping out on set. They were supposed to block off streets and maintain order, but they were so bad at it that their furious superior was running around yelling the whole time. Maslansky said the cadets came in all shapes, colors, and genders. When he asked the sergeant if they'd ever become decent officers, he was told the department had an equal opportunity policy for academy admissions, so they had to work with whoever showed up. Maslansky thought it was hilarious. That same day, he sketched out a few pages of a treatment and handed them over to executive producer Alan Ladd. Ladd liked the idea and gave it the green light. With a small budget, casting major stars in Police Academy was out of the question. The filmmakers combed through various teen comedies, hoping to find someone promising. One of the actors they considered for Mahoney was Tom Hanks. The producers liked him and invited him to join the film. Hanks said he took a long time to think it over, and turning it down wasn't easy. A few months after choosing Bachelor Party over Police Academy, he started feeling even more unsure. Production on Bachelor Party was delayed for a couple of months due to Kelly McGillis being fired and the script needing rewrites. The film eventually wrapped and became a hit, though not as big as Police Academy. At that same time, Splash, also starring Hanks, became a major success, so in the end, he had no reason to regret passing on Police Academy. The creators have always said that they weren't too upset about Hanks turning down the role. In 1983, he was still a nobody. Plus, the very next day, Steve Guttenberg came in to audition. Everyone liked him instantly, and he got the part. By the way, rumor has it Bruce Willis also auditioned for Mahoney but didn't impress anyone. John Travolta, on the other hand, turned it down right away. His career was struggling, and he was afraid a film like that might ruin it completely. Producer Paul Maslansky claimed that from the beginning, they envisioned making 10 Police Academy movies with the original cast. The test screenings for the first film were a little unorthodox. They were held during production, and the filmmakers made changes based on audience feedback, giving more screen time to certain characters and cutting back others. For instance, early test audiences loved Bubba Smith, who played Hightower. Originally a background character with just a few short appearances, he was quickly promoted to a supporting role. The first movie debuted at number 1 at the box office, knocking Splash off the top spot and later keeping Michael Douglas's Romancing the Stone from reaching number 1. All 3 films still performed well, so it's unlikely anyone was too bothered. With a budget of $4.5 million, the comedy earned $81 million in the US alone. Its worldwide gross topped $150 million. In Germany, Police Academy was even the highest-grossing film of the year. Naturally, with numbers like that, the studio wanted a sequel fast. The team delivered. The sequel was finished in under a year. But the second movie ended up changing the tone of the franchise due to a number of production issues. For starters, director Hugh Wilson refused to return or write the sequel. He chose to focus on Rustler's Rhapsody instead, taking G.W. Bailey, who played Lieutenant Harris, with him. This forced the team to revise their original plans. Steve Guttenberg also didn't want to come back. He disliked the new script. The solution? The studio offered him $1 million, and suddenly he was more open to the idea. Still, he insisted on making some changes. According to Guttenberg, the edits weren't about adding depth to his character. He said in interviews that he never fully understood Mahoney as a character and didn't like when actors acted like simple roles had deep meaning. In his view, Police Academy was just a fun movie, and Mahoney was a fun, lighthearted guy who didn't need some tragic backstory. The new director was James Signorelli, known for the 1983 comedy Easy Money, but his involvement caused problems. He struggled to connect with the cast, who thought he was too erratic and kept playing favorites with the new actors over the veterans. Tensions escalated until filming had to be halted. That's when the studio stepped in and made a change. Signorelli was fired. He was replaced by Jerry Paris, a director experienced with large ensemble casts who had no problem giving everyone their fair share of screen time. Because of all these issues, filming dragged on for almost 3 months. The test audiences weren't too thrilled with the result. The film quickly went to the editing room, where it was toned down and re-rated from R to PG-13. The first film, by contrast, had been rated R. Although all of this impacted the box office performance of the new film, the sequel was still a theatrical success. With a $7 million budget, it grossed $115 million worldwide. However, the studio realized that the franchise had peaked with the first film and would only go downhill from there. So, they decided to make the third film PG-rated. You can see this not only in the absence of nudity, but also in the jokes. Steve Guttenberg often expressed his frustration, saying that while the second movie didn't have major issues with the occasional joke, by the time they got to the third one, every single joke had to be approved by a special committee to make sure it was appropriate for a PG rating. Because of the new restrictions, audience ratings dropped significantly. While the movie still got relatively decent scores in some countries, viewer ratings in the US were approaching rock bottom. Still, thanks to the PG rating, which helped it reach a broader audience, the third movie pulled in over $100 million at the global box office. A strong result, given its $12 million budget. By the way, after Steve Guttenberg, the actors who earned the most from the third film were Bobcat Goldthwait and Tim Kazurinsky. They each received $600,000. Goldthwait's character had become a fan favorite in the second movie, and the filmmakers really needed him back. He demanded $600,000 for himself and $600,000 for his friend Kazurinsky, saying he'd only return under those terms. The studio agreed. The fourth film, which hit theaters in 1987, marked a real turning point for the series. It was the most expensive entry in the franchise at $17 million, and it was the only one to get a Golden Raspberry nomination. That might have been due to Sharon Stone, who joined the cast. She had a long history of attracting Razzie nominations throughout her career. Regardless, critics tore the fourth film apart. All the actors got slammed, including Guttenberg. The PG rating also took heat, with people saying that only 10-year-olds could enjoy the movie. Audience ratings in the US dropped sharply. The situation wasn't much better in other countries, and compared to the third film, the numbers were clearly slipping. The box office followed suit. Despite its $17 million budget, the film grossed only $77 million worldwide. It wasn't a complete flop, but the earnings were way lower than the first 3 movies. Guttenberg flat out refused to star in the fifth film. At the time, his career was still going strong. Besides Police Academy 4, he had a hit with 3 Men and a Baby, and the sequel to Cocoon was on the horizon. So, even a bigger paycheck couldn't lure him back. Kazurinsky and Goldthwait also exited the franchise, but for different reasons. Goldthwait demanded $1 million to return. The studio wouldn't pay, so he walked. After that, the creators felt that Kazurinsky's character didn't work without him and let him go too. With Guttenberg gone, the filmmakers tried to shake things up by moving the setting. Police Academy went to Miami, marking the first time a specific city was named in the series. The first 4 films had never specified a location. The fifth movie ended up being the last in the series to open at number 1 at the US box office. But that was its only real achievement. With a $14 million budget, it earned $54 million worldwide. While not a total box office disaster, audience ratings dropped below 5 out of 10 for the first time. As for the critics, they stopped watching entirely after this one. But as we all know, money talks. Since Police Academy was still turning a profit, even at lower quality, the studio greenlit a sixth film. Initially, it was supposed to be shot in Moscow, but the filmmakers couldn't get permission to film in the Soviet Union. The script was quickly rewritten into City Under Siege. With a $14 million budget, the film completely flopped at the US box office, pulling in just $11 million. It was the first entry in the franchise to not debut at number 1 in the US. International box office added another $22 million, slightly improving the numbers, but Warner Brothers decided not to take any more risks and canceled Paul Maslansky's planned sequel. Maslansky had intended for the seventh film to take place in London, and really wanted Steve Guttenberg to return to give the franchise a proper send-off. But the project would have required a $20 million budget. The studio refused, and the producers weren't willing to work with less. Maslansky refused to make another sequel on a lower budget for 5 years. But after his other projects in the early 2000s, like The Russia House with Sean Connery, flopped, his Hollywood career took a serious hit. Funding new projects became difficult, and eventually he came back to the seventh Police Academy film. Honestly, it was pretty predictable. The idea was pulled from earlier drafts of the sixth film, which was originally supposed to take place in Moscow. The budget was initially estimated at $15 million, but the studio only provided $9 million, which severely limited their creative options. Because of that budget, they had to cut some returning cast members. According to Bubba Smith, he was invited to join and even agreed to a pay cut. But Marion Ramsey, who was in deep debt, couldn't find a role for herself in the script and asked Smith to talk to the producers on her behalf. He tried, but couldn't reach an agreement with them, so he backed out of the project, hoping that would force them to reconsider. Instead, they just removed his character from the film. Ron Perlman, who appeared in the seventh movie, later said that he did society a great favor by helping Police Academy finally disappear from theaters, and that he has no regrets. The film was shot in Moscow at a particularly unfortunate time, and the already tight budget was drained by unexpected expenses. Many of the locations they planned to use turned out to be unavailable, so the crew had to improvise. According to the creators, this had a major negative impact on both the plot and visuals. Still, the film was completed and delivered to Warner Brothers. After seeing the final cut, the studio decided to pull the plug on the franchise. In the US, the movie got only a limited theatrical release and went straight to video internationally. Audience ratings for Mission to Moscow hovered around 3.5 out of 10. A few years later, Warner Brothers tried to reboot Police Academy for TV. On paper, the franchise seemed like a good fit, and in theory it could have worked. But apparently, that was only true in some alternate universe. In reality, with this creative team, it just didn't work out. Ratings were dismal, and the show was canceled after just one season. Today, Police Academy still gets mentioned in Hollywood from time to time. In 2017, Warner Brothers officially announced development on a new Police Academy film, and Steve Guttenberg began expressing regret in interviews about leaving the franchise after the fourth movie. He claimed that now they finally had a great opportunity to return and shake things up. But let's be honest, the original Police Academy just couldn't be made today, no matter how badly the creators want it. A movie in that style would offend too many people, and that's just not acceptable anymore. Even something as iconic as the bar scene wouldn't fly today, along with many other franchise moments. Since the comedy genre has suffered the most under today's hypersensitivity, a true Police Academy comeback seems extremely unlikely. At best, we might get a bland, sanitized version that's barely watchable. The question is, does anyone even want that? Thanks for watching, and stay tuned.